Creating quadrant gates in FCS Express. To create a quadrant gate or a set of quadrant gates, click on the Gating tab and then select Quadrants. Here, after it's selected, you'll see the gray is darker behind the background, and then you can click on the plot to insert your quadrants. As soon as we insert the quadrants on a plot, the Create New Quadrants window will open. We can replace an existing quadrants if there was any to replace. We can create new quadrants named and give them a name, and we can also ensure that the correct parent is applied to this set of quadrants. We can also tell the software to not create these hierarchically so that they will just be a subset to no gate. We can define a prefix. In this case, we are going to create these quadrants so that they are in the hierarchy under CD3, so we'll give it the prefix of CD3, and then we'll give CD8 and CD4, which are the two parameters that are being used for this plot. Here we can also check the box to always create data-specific gate when moving these quadrants, and what this means is as I go through my samples, if I move the quadrants, it will hold a specific location for each data file. I'll leave it to the default and then click OK here. Once these quadrants are created, we will see that we have the gates now in the hierarchy beneath CD3 labeled as a prefix of CD3, and then CD8 minus, CD4 positive, so on and so forth to label all of the quadrants. When the quadrants are selected, we can go to the Format tab, select a gate or quadrant properties, and look at this information here. We can lock center points. So if we wanted to have this have a specific value, we can set the value and then lock it for these points. We can do it by setting center point as a percentile. We can also change our quadrants to floating. So if we wanted to be able to move 5 points of our quadrants instead of just the one center point, we can change it to floating and then adjust our quadrant arm as needed. We can also link to gates because now the way that they're associated, they are a collective set of quadrant gates. So if we needed to separate out a gate, we could create a new gate by clicking on Create. The Create New Gate window will open. We can name the gate here. We'll do double positive. And so I will select the quadrant that is representative of that double positive. So the CD8 positive, CD4 positive, click here. We can choose to change the color. We can change the line width to make that border thicker. We can emphasize events on the plots as well. We can also determine where this is going to go in the hierarchy. So if we would like this to be a dependent of maybe just cells instead of the CD3 gate, we can move that here and then click OK. So then you'll see in our hierarchy that as a child of the cells gate. Also, please remember when you click on a gate, you will see these little double icons, which will remind you that these are linked. After creating a gate, if you realize that it is in the wrong place in your hierarchy, you can also move it. So it doesn't have to stay where we initially assigned it. We can move it around as needed. You are free to create as many gates as needed from these quadrant gates so that you can use these quadrant gates in other places. Let's take a quick look at how we can link quadrant gates. So I'm going to slide this over here. I'm going to create a new plot by dragging out the other population and make this about uniform in size. I'm going to apply the same parameters, and then I'm going to go to gating and insert quadrants. Once I've introduced them, this has a new parent, so I'm going to change the prefix here to lymphs. Click OK to create this new set of quadrants. Once these quadrants are created, if I would like to link them, I can expand in the Format window under the Linked Quadrant section to Link, and then I'll see the options on how to link my quadrants. I'll be able to select from a plot, I'll see the plot, or I could select from the tree, and then it will tell me which quadrants I can choose. I'm going to select from the plot just to make sure that I know I can see that it's the correct quadrants that I want to link. And once I click OK, you'll see that they have both popped now into this fixed position. That one's no longer a floating quadrant. And if I move the quadrants, they move simultaneously. If you were previously working in FCS Express, when you open a layout that has quadrants, you may see this notification. And what this is telling you that there is a transition from how we used to operate using quadrants to what we're doing now and creating them as default as gates. These options, they're going to set some quadrant options in our FCS Express user options window, and we're going to walk through these. So preset 1 will use the new default. So these will behave quadrants as gates. They will behave like conventional gates. The second option is for them to behave more like they have in previous versions of FCS Express. So let's go ahead and take a look at those user options now. So if I go to File Options and open that window, we'll go to Quadrants and then we'll start seeing these user options. So what we're doing in this place is selecting the options that modifies the behaviors of quadrants. So when new quadrants are created, we can tell the software to always create them hierarchically, meaning they will go underneath whatever population we are displaying on the plot at the time quadrants are created. We can display quadrant sets and gates and newly opened gate views and gate navigators. So that means that they'll be displayed here. If I uncheck this box, then when I open up a gate view or a new gate view or gate navigator, they will not be shown. We can update quadrant parameters when the plot parameters change. What this setting means is in previous versions of FCS Express, we could place quadrants on one plot and then place them on other plots that did not share the same parameters. So this allows that same flexibility, so a pair of quadrants can be used on plots that have different parameters. So if we take a look at this in real time, I'm going to go back to our plots here, cancel out this window. And you'll see with CD4 and CD8, my quadrants are showing. If I were to change these to new parameters, I suddenly don't have the quadrant placement anymore. If I were to go back and change those options, I would be able to maintain seeing those quadrants even when the parameters have changed on a plot. So click OK. And now when I select new parameters, it will still maintain those quadrants. So I hope this helped introducing you to how to use quadrants in FCS Express. Please feel free to reach out and contact us if you have any additional questions. Thank you so much.